I want us to look at sound in movie production. And we know that there is no movie production that is done without the effective use of sound. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hear you. Continue. We can hear you. Continue.
All right. All right. All right. So today we are looking at sound in movie production. We know that the course says filmmaking. The course is ICT, media, filmmaking, sound, then movie production. Filmmaking and movie production they are the same word, but what makes it different or the additional thing we have is a sound. Sound is very important when it comes to movie. Every sound you hear in a movie production is very, very important in any movie. But what is this sound? If one want to define it, sound is important in a production, as previously stated in our previous chapter. We said different aspect of sound enhances the character and the stories, making a movie a complete experience. In addition, we discussed in the previous work that sound is edited into the movie so it is coherent and comprehensive within the movie. Now, every movie you see begins with a sound. When you talk about the montage of the movie, that is the opening of the movie, it usually begins with the sound to tell you how important sound is and how relevant it is in a movie. If we talk about sound, if we talk about sound in terms of if we talk about sound in terms of movie, we have different categories of sounds. We have different categories of sound. We have the sound that is involved in dialogue. We also have uh, sound that we get from video effects. Now, these are various categories of sounds that we have. We have the sound that comes from dialogue of the characters. And apart from the sound that comes from dialogue of the character, we also have soundtracks. Soundtracks that is, you know, included or added in the movie that we are shooting. And without the sound, a lot of people might not really enjoy the movie because it is a sound that really says a lot of things. For example, if you are watching an action movie, the sound it makes, the sound that comes out of it tells you what is going to happen or what might happen or what is about to happen in the movie. But what is sound and how does it enhance a movie? That's a question that a lot of people want to know. Sound in movie includes the music, it includes dialogue, it includes sound effects, it includes ambience noise and the background noise or the soundtracks. Some sort of sound is also used to enhance the movie experience. Now, these are the kinds of sound we have. Talk about the music that is included in the opening of the movie is very important. When you're giving maybe your credits, like the producer of the movie, you're trying to introduce your actors, the Ramsey Noirs, the Jackie Chan. You're trying to introduce them. Your sound that you introduce at the beginning of the movie is very, very important, and that usually comes with music. It tells you how important music is in movie production. And apart from that, we also have the dialogue that comes in between. That's the conversation, the communication that comes between actors and characters in a movie. That's the second category of sound that we also have in movie production. The next one is the sound effects. If you're familiar with Indian movies or you're familiar with Chinese movies, there are some sound they make each time they are throwing punches, each time they are throwing blows at each other. They usually make this sound. Now, these sounds that they make actually add effect to the movie. It makes the movie has a lot of effect. Those blows don't really happen real life, but the sound makes it look as if it's happening. So it adds a lot of effect to the movie itself. What about ambient noise? Ambient noise is also another class of noise that comes with a movie. Ambience. When you open up your mic, your what do you call your boom mic. You open it to either you're trying to get a mono sound that comes from just the actors, or you get ambient sounds that comes from the environment. You're trying to get an environmental sound to add up to your movie, or you're getting a background noise. For example, if you're watching a horror movie, now, a lot of us might not really like horror movie, but sometimes I watch it not because of the, the blood that they suck or the human being that they kill, but sometimes the noise that they attach to those movies, try to make it more horrible, try to make it more scary. Now, this background noise is also part of our movie. Then the last of them is the soundtracks. Now, the soundtracks if you're familiar with Nigerian movies, soundtracks sometimes they even say a lot about the movie more than the characters. When you listen to movies like Nigerian movies like Osofia in London, or watch movies like Mr. Ibu. Now, when you hear the soundtracks that is, played underneath those movies, it says a lot about the movie. So if you're someone who listens to the sound or the music that comes under those movies, you just immediately know the kind of movie that is being acted. Either it's a comedy movie, or it's a tragic movie, or maybe it's a melodrama. From the sound that comes out of it, you get to know or have a feel of what this thing is all about. But let's quickly explain these 5 kind of sounds that I've mentioned, one after the other, with a few times that we have. The various kinds of sound that we have in music or in movie making, in film production. The first one I made mention is the music itself. Imagine if there is no music in a movie. Certain scenes, like the beginning credits, will have a dead air. It means when you are watching, you just be seeing images on your screen. There is no sound. You just be seeing the names of your characters, the names of your actors on screen without any sound effects. It makes it boring. It makes it not interesting to even watch. Now the movies will seem like it was missing something. Music is very important. It's a very important element for a movie. In the silent movie production, music has played throughout the whole movie. A film score is the music for the movie. The film score is the music at the beginning of the movie when the credits are rolling, and it also sets the atmosphere for the movie. So if you're watching an action movie, you'll try to listen to what kind of sound are they making? What kind of music is playing under the background? Is it an action, you know, uh, music that is underground, or is it a quiet music? All of these things has meaning. That is why, as professional filmmakers, each time we sit down to watch movies, don't just sit down for the entertainment. Put your mind and open up your heart to see all of this and observe them. That is why sometimes when you see someone watching a movie, they begin to ask you, why are you crying? The movie is just a movie, it's just an ordinary movie. It's because the person has moved away from watching the movie to becoming part of the movie. He's watching this movie to becoming part of the movie. He enjoys the movie. He hears the dialogue that goes on between these people. He also try to put himself in the environment, try to get the sound that comes out from the environment. Apart from that, he tries to hear the conversation that is going on between the characters, because this sound is what makes for a complete movie. Now, have you ever closed your eyes to listen to the music? You can feel like you are being whisked away by the music to a land the movie is being taken. That is what music does. For example, when you're looking at music that is done in a movie like Empire now, or the movie like Game of Thrones, the sound that comes inside those music is a sound that lives with you. Anywhere you hear the sound, even if you're hearing that sound on the streets, you feel as if you're already in the movie. You begin to imagine scenes inside the movie, begin to imagine characters in the movie, begin to, why? Because you have been able to uh, 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 you've already acclimatized yourself with the sound that the music makes. Now, each of these sound that is attached to a music or to a movie, sometimes it is customized to that movie. Like, for example, movies like anytime you hear their soundtrack, wherever you are, if you have watched that movie, you just say, ah, that is Empire. Each time you hear such sound, wherever you are, you will know that this is Game of Thrones. Why are we saying this? Because sound or music in movie production is very, very powerful. Sometimes a lot of movie watchers don't even get to remember these movies. But the music that is, or the sound that is being played in the movie, sometimes is what remains with this audience. That is why movie makers make sure that they look for the best of sound to play in the music or in the movie that they are acting. Music is also played at critical points during a movie. Have your emotions ever been at edge during a suspense thriller? When a certain piece of music is played at a different point of a movie. Now, this is also another important part of music. Sometimes when you're watching movies, your adrenaline, start going and your heart starts beating fast. This is very, very common in Nigerian movies. Sometimes when you are familiar with Nigerian movies, especially the ones that this patient Izoko is acted, some of her movies that she acted that, most of us know Patient Izoko with her wicked attitude. Each time she wants to carry out such evil acts, the sound that comes before her actions tells us a lot. Sometimes it tells us Patient Izoko is about killing somebody, or Kanayo is about entering his secret room. So you just see the ambience, the environment changes. Or for example, if someone is about to be killed, or you're watching a vampire movie and someone is about to be killed, or his blood is about to be sucked. Now these are some of the uh, movies that I can remember that I know we make use of sound a lot. Now when you hear some of this sound inside these movies, it tells a lot about what is about happening. It tells you that something is about happening. Or when you hear uh, a sound or a music that is done and you begin to hear how do I put it now? You begin to hear the sound of animals, creatures crying in the bush. You know that Pet Edoche maybe is about doing something evil or is about doing an incantation. Now these are some of the roles that music plays. So when you carefully listen to music for the first minute of 32 seconds of detail, what kind of comic or serious atmosphere is created for the tone of the movie? What kind of serious atmosphere is created for the tone of the movie? What type of atmosphere is created for the protagonist? All right, hello? Hello, are we still there? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
All right. All right, the next thing we'll be looking at looking at is the dialogue. Dialogue in movie is defined as a conversation between two or more people in a movie. In addition, a movie could have a monologue where a character is speaking out loud when he or she is alone. Sometimes we call it, some call it soliloquy, soliloquy, whatever I want to call it, but it's a monologue where a character speaks to himself alone. Maybe he's meditating and he's meditating it loud. That is soliloquy is a word that we use in literature when you're thinking aloud. Now, that is dialogue for you. Dialogue is also important in movie because that is what we use to pass the message across. We've talked about music. Music is also an important part of the movie, but what is more important is the message that is conveyed through dialogue. And dialogue happens between two characters, two people, or even more in a movie. Now, a character, for example, may contemplate the pros and the cons of taking some form of action in a monologue, but a movie can also have a voice over narration. Of course, if you're familiar with some maybe animated movies like fairy tale stories, or you're looking at cartoons, most of these stories usually begins with a narration. They try to tell you the beginning of this movie, try to give you a background knowledge of this movie. And in between these movies, you hear a voice of a female narrator trying to explain these movies to you. For example, Maleficent is one of the typical example that I can remember. Maleficent is also there where we see the narrator beginning the story with the cartoon with a story, trying to remind us that Maleficent used to be this, she used to be that. That is what dialogue does. Dialogue tries to, open open us up to the movies itself. So sometimes when we're listening to movies, each word that a character says tells you more about the movie. So pay attention to every word that comes out from their mouth because they are meant don't the action that comes with it, the blows, the shooting that comes with it, but the conversation that happens between, in between the shooting, the conversation tells you more about what the movie is all about. So, what will a movie be without a dialogue? Even in 90 to 100 years ago, even 90 to 100 years ago, there were silent movies with no audio dialogue. But dialogue cards were used, and the background music set the tone for the scene. Take a look at the following example of the scene without a dialogue. Jack, Susie, and Alec are walking home after. Now, this is an example of a movie that was acted without a dialogue. Now you see, it's more like when there's no dialogue, it's more like a miming movie, a mimed movie. So a movie that just has silence movie just has it's just a silent movie with a background sound. A lot of people might not really understand it if they are not paying keen attention to the body languages of these characters, or if they don't take a look at certain things or take notice of certain behaviors that these characters do. So sometimes when you look at characters like look at movies like what do they call it now, Z World, you look at movies like the ones that they act in Telemundo, some of them they don't even, if you look at some of their actions, they try to use their body language very well so that they use their body languages to convey messages. And that is where the cinematographers makes good use of his cameras, because if a character is trying to make a gesture with his eyes or trying to make a gesture with his nose or is trying to wink, the cinematographer tries to get all of those actions because he doesn't want, maybe they don't want to make use of sound. They don't want the actor to say any word. They only want him to mimic or to mime or to do certain things without a sound. But how will you feel watching a movie from beginning to the end and there is no one dialogue? Will you enjoy such a movie? For some people who are not even patient, as soon as they begin to see such kind of movies, they will just start clicking on the screen. a movie from the beginning, they try to ignore the movie and do something. I find that understandable. As soon as you see at the beginning of the movie, the viewer would have an idea what the conflict of the movie was going to be. Now that is what the dialogue does. Gives the audience, the viewer, an understanding of what the movie is all about. For example, if you're watching a movie where there's a controversy between two rivalry groups, you might not understand what is causing the fight until you listen to their conversations. In their conversations, I will tell you, okay, I'm going to kill him because he killed my brother, or he killed my sister. I'm going to kill him because he robbed our family. You can't get that just looking at them with your volume off. You need to hear what conversation is going on so that you can understand it. Now, we said it gives the viewers an understanding of what the movie is all about. Now, if the above scene was at the beginning of the movie, the viewer will have an idea of what the conflict is all about. A contemporary viewer will be lost without dialogue. That's my point. A contemporary viewer will be lost if there is no dialogue in a movie. You will not even understand where the movie is going. You don't understand where the movie is coming from. That is why Nigerian movies, a lot of them are so predictable because from their dialogue, from the things they say, from how they say their conversations, you know where this movie is going to end. And that is why a lot of people don't even watch Nigerian movies. A lot of people don't watch Nigerian movies because from their dialogue, they understand what and how the movie is going to end. Now, away from dialogue, another sound I'll be looking at now is a sound effect. Don't forget, we're looking at sound now in movie production. Sound is a very powerful tool that movie makers use to portray and pass their message. I've mentioned uh, two sound now. I've said the first sound is the music. The music in a movie is very, very important. It sometimes is mostly used when opening the movie in the montage of the movie. That is the sound that opens up the movie. And when we have such movies with the opening from a distance, you will know what kind of movie that you're about to watch. The second sound in movie is the dialogue. I would say the dialogue is the conversation that happens between characters in a movie. The dialogue helps the viewers to understand what is going on and what is happening in the movie. The dialogue is also used to pass across the message of the movie. Any movie that is lost, any movie that the message of the movie is lost in the movie, then that message is a failed movie. That movie is a failed one because the essence of that movie was to pass a message either to the government, either to the general public, or you're passing your message to criminals. If your dialogue is hidden in the sound, or you have your sound louder than your character's voice, then you have lost the message. You have lost it. So a lot of you listening to me now, you might in future find yourself in the movie industry. So long as you're in mass we always rub shoulders. We always have this romance with movie makers and characters. So sometimes if you don't find yourself in a TV, you can as well begin to play towards the movie production or movie being a movie producer or movie character, because that is where most of us end up, from mass to movie actors to movie directors and to movie producers. So be mindful of all of these things because they are very, very important when it comes to production. Even in news, even in the TV production or in a radio production, we make use of sound very, very well. Talk about you watching a TV program that does not have a montage, that don't have a sound attached to the opening of that movie or that program on TV. You might not even know which program is on. You might not even know which activity is going on your TV set. Why? Because there is no sound. Each sound is attached to a particular program or a particular production. For example, when you listen to NTA News, anywhere you hear the soundtrack of NTA News, you will know it is 9 o'clock. Why? Because it is a national sound that has been there for ages. So a lot of us, when we hear that sound, we know it is 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock news. When you hear AIT doing their news montage, you try to, as soon as you hear the sound, you know that it is AIT news. But when you're listening to uh, maybe other TV programs, the sound itself tells you what program is about coming because sound is everything. Another thing that sound does, like I said, dialogue is the next thing. When you are on TV or when you're on radio and your mic is not on, or you're having a conversation on air or having a chat with a guest and his mic is not on, even if he's making a lot of sense and your mic is not on, he's just wasting his time on air because nobody is listening to what he's saying. That is how important dialogue is, and that is how important sound is in anything that has to do with movie, anything that has to do with production. So the next thing we'll be looking at now is a sound effect. What is a sound effect? It's a very, very important question that a lot of us don't even know. That most movies that we watch, what makes us enjoy them mostly is the effects that is attached to those sound, to those movies. If you're watching a karate movie and you begin to hear the sound that they make when they are fighting, it makes you interested in watching the movie. Or when you're looking at an action movie, the sound of the gun that is being made during this movie makes you enjoy the movie. These are effects that is added in sound. But let's talk about the effect. What is really sound effect? We said dictionary.com defines sound effect, or sound effect can be defined as any sound other than the music or the speech artificially reproduced to create an effect in a dramatic presentation, as the sound of a storm, for example, or the creaking of a door, for example. An action movie, for instance, is more interesting and bolder with sound effects. With sound effect, the viewer gets more involved with the movie. I hope you're enjoying it because all of these things is interesting if you are involved in it. If you are a movie freak like myself and you listen to take notice of all of these things, you enjoy movie beyond what other people do. When other people are just watching and looking at movie for entertainment, you are watching a movie with all of these things in your mind. You're listening to the sound effect that is going on, you're listening to the conversation that is going on, and most important, you hear the sound that comes underneath this movie that you're watching. It makes it more interesting. For example, when you're watching a horror movie, you begin to hear sound effect that is added in the movie, like a crying or a sound being made by a silent sound being made by a dead ghost, or you're looking at a sound being made by sound effect like mashing of the door, hitting of the door, and also uh, sound effect sound effect that has to do sound effect that has to do with maybe crying babies, a lot of babies crying, and you don't get to see these babies, but they are crying. Or the sound of a wolf, a dire wolf in a forest. You're listening to all of this sound. It makes the movie very interesting. It tries to pass a strong message to you that maybe danger is lurking, or maybe something bad is about happening to the actor, or something something is ahead. So most of us begin to say, if you're watching movies with old women or with grandmothers, they begin to say, oh, mommy, don't go there, don't go there, please. So, something bad is about happening. Now, you see these grand women or these old women, they get themselves involved in the movie. They follow the sound effects. They get the message. That's why sometimes they begin to talk to the characters of the movie in their house. Oh, don't go there, my child, don't go there, don't go there. They're watching movie and they're talking to the movie. Why? Because they are involved in the movie. That is what sound effect does. So sound effects are most often added into the movies at the post-production. Do you get it? So I told us earlier on that movie production involves 5 stages. I said the beginning is the idea stage where we just begin to think of what kind of movie we want to produce. The next one is the pre-production stage where we begin to gather our materials, begin to put in resources, begin to call in actors, and begin to call in the characters, do your auditioning. This is a pre-production stage. Then the production stage, I said, is a stage where the movie is being acted. That is the making of the movie properly. Then the post-production is when the movie is being edited. Now, at the editing part of movie, at the editing part is where we bring all of these effects, especially the sound effects. The dialogue part, it happens during the production because that is where conversation takes place. But during post-production, that is where we bring in all of the effects that we're talking about. Now, many times when filming a scene with multiple actions going on at the same time, such as dialogue is going on, sword fighting, and other background action, sound effects are added at the post-production to make the sound louder. Do you understand it? These effects are added to make the sound louder. If you're talking of maybe a gunshot, if you go to where this movie are being produced or during production, this sound don't go anywhere. But when they come to making the movie at the end, maybe during the editing, that is where they amplify all of this sound to make it look louder. Because if it don't look loud, a lot of people might not look at it as real. Do you understand what I'm saying? So these sound effects are very, very important in movie. In a theater, watch the beginning scene of that is an example now. Sarano, and there are different people speaking at the same time with murmurings of the crowd. Much of this sound will have to be added in later to make it as effective and clear as it is in a movie. Now, another example I can really remember of movies that we try to amplify or make the sound effects more louder is when you're looking at movies that have to do with the law courts. When a judge is about sentencing a criminal, we begin to hear murmurings here and there inside the courtroom, and the judge will say, "Silence! I don't need noise in my court. Quiet in my court." Now, these are normal murmurings that happen in the court, but when it's being edited during post-production, those sounds are amplified to a point where you can even hear the sound or the voice of people sitting in the audience. That is happening during post-production. The sound is effective as it draws the viewer to the music and demonstrates AI's ability as a good piano player. Music and sound effect give an aspect of AI's character. Now, let me say Empire. I think Empire tells me more tells me more about this kind of how sound effect comes in play. When you see characters playing music and they play the piano, they play the instruments. During post-production, we try to amplify such sounds so that you and I will know how good these characters are in terms of playing the instruments, in terms of playing the violin, in terms of playing the kind of music they make in the movie. Now, the next kind of sound I will look at now is the ambient noise, which is the background noise. Hmm. Background noise is also very important in movie because we make use of it a lot. Ambient noise are background noise that are in the room, a house, outside, or any given location. Every location has a distinct and subtle sounds created by. Yes. Hello.
Please time up. Time up.
All right. All right. All right. So let me quickly drop my assignment. I need you guys to write the importance of sound in movie production. It's an assignment. Write the various importance of sound in movie. And I need you to dig more on the various, that is the second question, dig more on the various types of sound in movie production. First, tell us the importance of sound in movie. That's your assignment now. The second assignment, give me the importance of sound in movie production. Second question is, what are the various sounds that we have in movie production? As I conclude with ambience, I said ambience are background noise in a movie, noise that takes place at the background of the movie. And for example, a room noise that you hear, an ambient noise, is a room in an older house will have a more ambient noise than a newer house, where you see cracking of the ceiling, you see the wall, cracking,